This year, we celebrated Thanksgiving with my wife's family for the last 18 years. We always hosted it at our house, but now that the boys are gone, things have changed. Jordan went to Auburn, and Josh went to Alabama. I think they did this on purpose to keep a fun family rivalry going. It was always in good spirits and kind of a tradition. I worked as an insurance claims adjuster for 15 years, but I hated it. I always wanted to do something outside and hands-on, but I wasn't sure what. I just knew I didn't want to be stuck at a desk anymore. My family situation made me feel trapped in my job. Connie, my wife, never worked. In the past few years, the boys were very active in sports and other activities. I became the more involved parent, while Connie was more relaxed but still supportive. As I spent more time with the boys, Connie spent more time with her parents, who are in their late 60s. They're still healthy but starting to feel the effects of aging. Every couple of years, they would spend Thanksgiving at our house, but we had never gone to theirs. We expected a calm, low-key weekend. The weather was nice, so the 2-hour drive went smoothly. Connie's dad and I had a good chat, while Connie and her mom got busy preparing for the meal the next day. It was just the four of us and everything went quite well. The food was delicious and the company pleasant. Frank, Connie's dad, and I were looking forward to a long afternoon of football and cold beer. Connie's mom just wanted to be left alone with her new Patterson novel. John, if it's okay with you, I am going to go spend the afternoon with Harriet Miller from high school. I haven't seen her for over 10 years. Are you and Dad going to be okay? We'll be fine. Honey, stay as long as you'd like, but lay off of the spirits. I smiled as I waved her out the door. Connie's mother, Teresa, was just finishing the cleanup, as I was getting a couple of fresh long necks for me and Frank. Where did Connie run off to, John? I think she said that she was going to go see an old friend, Harriet Miller, I believe. That's nice. She will probably be there most of the afternoon. She gave me a weird smile. She said she would be back later this evening. The afternoon was calm and plodding. Teresa was curled up with a book in the living room, and Frank and I were attempting, but failing miserably, to become excited about the football games. John, would you mind getting a couple of black and tans out of the frig? I think that we need to talk a bit. When I got back, Frank had just closed the door between the den and the living room. What is on your mind? Frank, first of all, I think you should know that Harriet Miller died from colon cancer about 6 months ago. I have no idea why Connie said that she was going to see her. She could have just as easy picked a name of someone that wasn't dead. I didn't respond to what he said. I am not sure, but I think that it is an in-joke between Connie and her mother. They seem to have these little secrets between them that I am not privy to. What you are saying is that something shitty is going on that I don't know about. Exactly. I got 2 more beers. This has been happening for the past 5 years. That's why Connie has been visiting us so often. What do you mean? I'm a little confused. When Connie visits us lately, she doesn't stay here. I don't know where she goes, but I've been told to mind my own business. Are you saying Connie is up to something she shouldn't be, and her mother is helping her? I knew you were a smart guy. I finished my beer, and we both pretended to care about the ball game. We didn't talk about it anymore. As the time went on, Frank started nodding off, and I caught myself thinking about what my wife was really up to. I got out my cell and started to play around. Connie had turned off her Find a Phone app. I fiddled around with it a bit, but did not have any results. I didn't try and call her, but I assumed that her phone was still on and active. I wondered how those police show were always able to locate a cell phone, and I couldn't. I made a fresh pot of coffee. Frank fell asleep on his recliner. Teresa put a cover over him as she went up to bed. Connie finally got home. So how was Harriet? I tried to say it with a straight face. She was fine. They redecorated the whole house now that their kids are gone. It looked nice. The problem is that I drank a little too much wine. I shouldn't have driven home. I didn't reply. John, I am really tired. I am going to catch a quick shower and hit the sack. We'll talk in the morning, okay? I filled the thermos with fresh coffee. I also stuck Connie's cell phone in my pocket. As I walked out the door, I heard Frank whisper, "Go get him, Tiger." I didn't know what he meant, but it did bring a smile to my face. There was no real plan, so I just sat, waiting for the heater to warm up. I finally decided to try and use the GPS system in the car. For what it cost, I was hoping to get something out of it other than finding the nearest McDonald's. I went to the history section and selected bead crumbs. Yes, it was all there. I had a clear trail of red dots showing me everywhere my wife had been that afternoon. I didn't know where Harriet lived, but it didn't matter. I just had to follow the red dots. 15 minutes later, I found myself in a small neighborhood, parked in front of a little brick house with a one-car garage. This had to be the place because the dot stopped here and then turned around. I took out my phone and opened Google Maps. After a little work, I figured out that I was right in front of 321 David Drive. If I had known what I was doing, I could have figured all this out in minutes. I didn't know what I was doing, but I did stumble through it and found out that the house was owned by Henry Parker. Henry Parker was Connie's high school boyfriend and, if I remember correctly, had even taken her to the senior prom. She thus went to sea and spent some time with an old boyfriend. That does not imply that they had sexual activity during the afternoon. I had no evidence, but they might have. All I had was enough to make my marriage a little uncomfortable. I detested mediocre work. I was going to just go back to the house, but at the last minute decided to continue backtracking the breadcrumbs. It turned out to be a good decision. It seems that Connie did not go directly to Henry's house. She stopped by a CVS on the way. So, what could I do with that information? I turned on the car's interior light and searched for an empty bag or receipt, but found nothing. Connie was predictable. She never used cash, always her card. I turned on her phone and opened the MasterCard app. It worked perfectly. The purchase history showed she had shopped at Lakeshore CVS today at 3:45 p.m. My wife had bought a Trojan Pleasure Pack for $7 and a tube of Kai jelly for $10. There were 12 condoms in the pack. I hope she thought it was worth it. Now I had enough information. I could have gone home, but I had one more thing to do. First, I saved a copy of the CVS receipt as a JPG. Then I went into the phone settings. I wasn't great at this stuff, but I kept at it until I managed to set the receipt picture as her wallpaper. Then I made it the default for her phone. Now whenever she opens her phone, it will be the first thing to come up. I am sure she will have no trouble getting rid of it, but not before she realizes that I am fully aware of what she did. I also sent myself a copy of that picture. 20 minutes later, I was back at the house. Frank was still sleeping on his recliner. I assumed that Teresa was upstairs in bed and loving wife was fast asleep in the guest room. I quietly gathered up all of my things and moved downstairs. I put Connie's cell phone on the kitchen table with my wedding ring. There was no note. I didn't feel that it was necessary. I was ready to walk out the door when I saw my father-in-law in the doorway. "How did it go, John?" "Just as you expected." He smiled and gave me a small wave. 5 hours later, I was home. 5 hours after that, I was on my way to Florida. No more crappy job, no more crappy weather, and no more cheating wife. I was tempted to stop and see the boys, but decided not to. For some strange reason, I ended up in Baldwin County, Alabama, instead of Florida. It seems as if there are hundreds of deserted mobile homes located in developments around the area. Retirees buy the homes and then die. Their heirs are then stuck with having to continue paying lot and community fees until the units can be sold. Sometimes this takes years, so there were many rentals available. Within a week, I had a new address, a new driver's license, and a new bank account. All my Pennsylvania accounts were closed out. After filing a declaration of domicile, I contacted Alabama and Auburn to change the status of the boys to residents. I transferred all of the money from all of the accounts and even the boys' college funds. Because I am a good guy, I paid off all of the credit cards before closing them. Connie still had her Kohl's card. I canceled the insurance on the house and Connie's car. The car and her cell phone were in her name. I thought about canceling the utilities, but decided not to at the last minute. I wasn't hiding, but I didn't tell anyone where I was. I won't bore you with all the other small tasks I had to take care of. You've probably heard it all before. I did call each of the boys and explain the situation as best as I could without coming off like a jerk. They weren't happy and didn't fully understand, but seemed to accept it. I got a job at Escambia Boat Works, scraping boat hulls. They were not interested in paying me under the table for insurance reasons, so I ended up having to go the above-board route. It didn't matter since I didn't care if anyone found me. I didn't break any laws. I got a $10 a month membership at the closest Planet Fitness. I had no desire to get into an exercise regimen, but I did need a good place to shower after work. The bathroom facilities at the rental trailer were barely adequate. After showering, I usually ate out or picked up something to go. The routine smoothed out quickly and I was a happy camper. "Frank, it's me, John. Just thought that I would check in and see how things were going." "Hey, Guy. Good to hear from you. How long has it been now?" "Almost 4 months. Just about. I've been busy just getting settled. I had my phone turned off almost the whole time. I only turn it on when I need to use it. Mostly to order takeout." So what the hell are you doing? I rented a small mobile home and got a job working at one of the local boat yards. I lost almost 20 pounds already, and I am not even dieting. The boys are coming down for spring break. I am looking forward to seeing them, but not to having to explain why I left. We'll see how it goes. Well, I am glad to hear things are going well for you. Everything went to shit here. Did your wife contact you? Frank, I have not heard a word. Not a single message popped up on my phone. I was actually expecting to be flooded with calls, but I didn't get any. The only messages were spam calls. What's going on? I could hear Frank laughing on the other end. John, you wouldn't believe it. Connie and her mom actually celebrated for a whole week after you left. The first thing Teresa did was take your wedding picture off the mantle and put up an old picture of Connie and Henry from prom. I didn't even know she still had that picture. I expected some kind of reaction, but not that. I guess everyone is happy now. Well, not really. The chickens did come home to roost, so to say, when Connie returned back home. She could not even pay the utility bills, let alone the mortgage. Things went to hell pretty fast. The house will be going back to the bank next month. She still owes the back utility bills. Hell, she can't even pay her Kohl's bill. How is she living? She was going to move in with us, but at the last minute she decided to move in with Henry. I was relieved at that. She is pissed that you closed out all of the bank accounts, but not enough to contact you about it. Henry seems more than willing to support her. Frank and I chatted for a few more minutes. I promised to call again after the boys went back to school. I had mixed emotions about the whole thing. On one hand, I was happy that I got away clean. But on the other hand, I was a bit upset that there was absolutely no remorse. I guess I didn't do it right. The boys stayed for a week. But to be honest, they spent most of the time in Gulf Shores or Panama City Beach. They refused to get into any discussion about the marriage. They said that Connie called each of them one time, said that I left, and gave no further explanation. They didn't hear from her again. They were happy to hear that I would still be able to take care of their tuition. I told them to get Alabama driver's licenses and use my address. I had no social life. I did not go to bars. All the waitresses at the restaurants I frequented were either too young, too old, or too desperate. I did start working out a bit at the fitness center just because I was bored and looking for something to do. It wasn't anything like the stuff you read in erotic stories. Plus, there wasn't much happening where I lived either. Most of my neighbors were retired. I got hooked on watching YouTube videos. 2 years went by, and no one ever knocked on my door, especially not on a Sunday morning. Finally, I decided to see who it was just to get them to stop. It was Frank. Damn, Frank, how did you find me? I stopped on the way down and saw Jordan. He gave me directions. I couldn't find Josh. You got a cold beer for a weary traveler? It's 6 in the morning. Wouldn't you rather have coffee? Got some. I did have enough stuff on hand to throw together a pretty good breakfast, one of my many vices. We chatted and ate for a while until I asked the big question. What the hell are you doing here? I got in a little trouble and felt that it was time to leave the Keystone State. I didn't respond. Henry leaned back a bit in his chair and tried to get comfortable. Connie and Henry got married Saturday morning. I didn't even know that I was divorced. That's interesting, but it doesn't seem like a reason to leave. While everybody was at the church, I went over and burned down Henry's house. Now that seems very interesting. How did that go over? I don't know. I didn't see them after that. Well, since you are here, I guess they will just have to move in with Teresa now. Not likely. I gave him an inquisitive look. I burned down my own house just before I left. And then another surprise. Josh and Jordan showed up. What did I do to deserve this visit? Frank and I helped them bring their bags in. Actually, we were trying to figure out where Grandpop disappeared to. This was my best guess. Josh figured that he would go to Mexico. I take it that you both went to the wedding. Yeah, it was a blast, but definitely not what we expected. Jordan looked like he was trying not to laugh. Frank elbowed me and said, John, I think your boys are messing with us. I grabbed 4 beers from the fridge and asked, So, how do you like your new stepdad? That made both of them start laughing. What's so funny? I asked. They never got married, Dad. In the middle of the ceremony, somebody piped up and said that Henry's house was on fire. Everything stopped as he rushed out to see what was going on. By the time things settled down, we found out that Grandmom and Grandpop's house was also on fire. Mom kept trying to get Henry to finish the ceremony, but he finally got pissed off. Yelled that the wedding was off and stormed out. We had no place to stay, so we drove right down here. So they never got married. Nope. Josh and Jordan stayed a few days and then went back to school. A few people showed up making inquiries about Frank, but I was able to misdirect them to Ocala. After a few weeks, they stopped coming around. Frank got a job at Home Depot, and life got a lot more interesting. He was more outgoing than I was, and soon enough, I actually started having a bit of a social life. Suddenly, we were going to cookouts, barbecues, and birthday parties. We even got invited to a funeral and a couple of weddings. That's where I met Argie Sue Baker. Argie was a divorcee who worked in the garden department at Home Depot with Frank. After bumping into her at different events, we kind of became a couple. One thing led to another, and 6 months later, she moved into the trailer with me after Frank moved out. He found a rich widow who owned a condo in Orange Beach. Argie and I bought the camper together, but we never got married. Now, we both work at Home Depot after she convinced me to leave my job at the marina. Isn't love something? Second story. First of all, I want to make sure I fully understand the situation I'm in. With all the stress from school, I want to be sure my judgment isn't affected before I jump to any conclusions. I was on my girlfriend's phone and noticed that she had one of her friends on silent, which seems strange since her phone is usually buzzing with texts. When I checked the messages, this friend was saying things like, "Good morning, love," and "How did you sleep?" This made me very concerned, especially because she was replying to him. Feeling suspicious, I decided to look through her deleted photos, and I found a picture of them kissing and being very close. The photo even had a live feature, so it was clear they were being physical. I asked her about it, and she said she didn't remember what happened, eventually telling me that it happened at a party and that she had been roofied. I felt confused because she had texted me that same night, and I have the timestamp and date of the photo. That night, she messaged me, "What's wrong with me?" Maybe I'm overthinking, and she really was roofied. But what worries me the most is that she hasn't made any effort to report it, especially since the text from this friend seemed suspicious, and she was still replying to him. I'm afraid this friend took advantage of her because she told me he had asked her to be his girlfriend before the party. She said she rejected him,